Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, John Clark, Dave Patterson, and Graham Noble. And this is The Conservative Five, an online TV production of Liberty Nation News. When it comes to the federal government, conservatives and libertarians in today's America have two main beefs. First, the government is far too big. Second, it has been weaponized against the opponents of leftist ideology. Are these criticisms justified? Reactions to recent State Department layoffs seem to confirm that in both cases, the right is, well, right. Department of State fired staffers did not take it very well being asked to clean out their desks and consult the classifieds. How petty did those non-essentials get, Graham?
Well, I thought it was kind of amusing, Sarah, to be honest. Basically, it was 1,353, I believe, federal workers. I mean, there are more to come, but that was a kind of a first wave of layoffs at the State Department. And it's really, when you look at the big picture, we have a federal government that has, about 3 million employees. It is in fact true that nobody really knows how many federal agencies there are. Those are the kind of subdivisions within various government departments. Nobody actually knows how many there are, really. I mean, it's kind of a mystery. There's various different figures for that. But anyway, the State Department guys and gals, as they were on their way out the door, they left little signs around the office. One of them, which appeared I guess was printed up multiple times and appeared in various locations, said, colleagues, those of you who remain, resist fascism, which, is kind of a bit silly because fascists are not known for laying off government workers. They are known for hiring a great deal more of them. So it's all a bit silly anyway. But of course, the fact that they use those words, resist fascism, tells you what their politics are, because obviously it's always the left that is calling everyone a fascist who doesn't agree with them. And resist fascism is simply another way of saying resist Trump, resist the Trump administration. So therefore, we know that the State Department, there's proof right there that the State Department is riddled with left-wing ideologues, and that really kind of is a problem because these people are not supposed to be politicized at all. The State Department is a very important department, one of the oldest departments in the federal government, in fact, and it's, it has a lot of national security stuff going on. So the last thing you need there is political zealots of any shade of politics. Of course, State Department is not the only department that's been hit as well. Also, the Education Department is about to start laying people off thanks to that move was blocked by a lower court. It went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, in fact, on Monday, which, because I don't know when this show is going to be aired, but Monday, July 12th, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that the Trump administration could indeed start laying off Education Department people, while I believe that fight is going to go back to the lower court. But in the meantime, Trump can do it. There are no prizes, by the way, for guessing the names of the 3 associate justices who dissented from that opinion.
I think we know.
But there you go. So Trump is kind of slowly but surely winning his battle to lay off pouting government employees who seem to think that they are somehow entitled to their jobs, as opposed to the rest of us poor schmucks who work in the private sector.
Right. Well, we're lucky to have Mr. John Clark on here, a farmer and a former Democrat, and also a lawyer. I love to poke you on that. You're not well, you might be a conservative now, but anyway, water under the bridge.
And a man with a good tan.
Mr. Clark, can you expand on that U.S. Supreme Court decision that Graham mentioned?
Sure. Interestingly, a lot of these layoffs stem from the court's decision in which there was only one dissent from Ketanji Brown Jackson, which was called Trump versus Pouting Federal Workforce. Actually, it was the American Federation of Public Employees.
Same
And
thing.
yeah, well, I thought you'd agree. And that really kind of tees us up for an understanding of the legal dichotomy here. I mean, the underlying issue is whether, as alleged by Justice Jackson in her dissent, that Donald Trump is out to completely restructure the government at such a grand scale as to require congressional oversight involvement, or is he just engaging in typical executive branch and allowable legal actions to downsize the workforce, which Bill Clinton did and Obama did without having to restructure, the government through Congress. And that really is the underlying dispute, which then framed the issue at the trial court level, the district court, the federal district court, which basically tried to issue an injunction against firing these people pending what could be a very lengthy legal path while they figure it out. And the Supreme Court reversed that and stayed the injunction. But that, in a way, so I should explain, the lawyer hat on, not the farmer hat. Preliminary injunctions are generally regarded as an extraordinary form of relief. The bar is supposed to be very high for them because they do, in fact, have huge implications. And if you win the injunction or lose it, you may have largely won or lost the case. And in this case, by having the U.S. Supreme Court shut down that injunction, the firings can proceed. What the unions have called, they've complained, said you cannot unscramble that egg. Well, indeed, if they lay off hundreds and hundreds of people, it is going to have longstanding ramifications. And this was the complaint of the dissent, that Congress needed to be involved. But ultimately, what the Supreme Court determined was that this was just a broad executive order and an OMB memo. There were no specific layoffs before the court to assess. So in due time, this will come up to the courts again. But the U.S. Supreme Court ruled essentially that the district court had erred and that Donald Trump's executive order was not unlawful, and he is likely to prevail in the future on his rights as the executive, the leader of the executive, to lay people off. And so, just like in the lawsuit, Trump versus federal workers, we have the American people against this massive technocratic state, which is entrenched and doesn't want anybody to be fired because boo-hoo, they won't get their paycheck. And as Graham points out, that's the opposite of the fascism that we usually hear.
They keep saying that they're trying to, the Trump administration keeps saying that they are trying to, downsize government and save money for the American taxpayer. But Andrew, come on, we're not saving any money here. What's the backstory? Because there is no money being saved by firing a handful of people.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, out of a $7 trillion budget, federal payrolls account for about $100 billion of that. So that's not even a month's worth of interest payments. And you also look at the size of it. I mean, the Trump and Doge, their thing was reducing the size of government workers. The numbers are mixed so far. You look at the Department of Labor's weekly initial jobless claims. That's been pretty small. You look at the Challenger data. At the beginning there, you saw a sizable number of the planned job cuts based on federal workers and contractors. Graham mentioned that before about subdivisions. Government contractors is one thing that's not counted in the labor statistics, and that's something that if you're cutting waste, cutting federal workers, State Department, whatever the case, that's something you'd see a reduction of. Now, so to your question, what's the end game? On Sunday night, before I went to bed, I was watching an interview with former President Richard Nixon, and he said that one of the reasons why he was targeted so much as he was because he, in his second term, he wanted to overhaul the federal government. He wanted to change the makeup of it. He wanted to reduce the size of the workforce in government. That's why everyone went after him. And that's part of the thing that Trump and the MAGA base have been talking about are the unelected bureaucrats, how much power they wield and how much, how much they can enact a progressive agenda. I mean, if you have fewer federal workers, then perhaps you're going to spend less money on, producing Elmo in Iraq, or you're not going to have drag queens, shows in South America, or whatever the case. So I think that is one of the reasons why the Trumponomics 2.0 has been trying to, I wouldn't say take a chainsaw because, that has to happen, but why he's taking scissors to the payrolls at the federal
Yeah,
level.
the safety scissors that kindergartners have, the round ends.
Yeah, I agree. But also, you have to look at the overall government, though. You actually see an increase in overall government payroll. So, state and local government, state and local level. You look at the recent June jobs report, and you actually saw a 74,000 increase in the number of overall government workers. And then, of course, you have the government adjacent sectors too, adding to it. So overall, I mean, government is still bloated. And as you alluded to, Sarah, it was safety scissors that my kids used to use when they were in kindergarten.
Thank you, Andrew. That was pretty concise. Even I understood everything.
Okay, so
I'm gonna
now from a dissertation on marginal utility.
I want to circle back because I forgot to ask this question. I'm going to pull Dave in on this one. Is the Supreme Court going to have to make every decision on everything that Trump does? I mean, is that what we're going to do? Is that what this administration is facing, Dave?
Well, I think it kind of looks that way, doesn't it? But one thing that could stop this Supreme Court being the default position to go to whenever there's a dust-up, and I know it's a little bit counterintuitive, but it would be for Congress to step in and pass legislation that codifies the executive power to reorganize and downsize agencies. I mean, you like to keep Congress out of the administration's business, but sometimes they're helpful in laying down the ground rules by which the administration, the executive, can do its business, and that's oftentimes helpful. And, the court's role is not to initiate or to oppose government downsizing, but it's basically there to resolve disputes over whether it's legal in specific instances. And it seems as long as there are administrative actions by the executive branch that push the boundaries of that without congressional clarity, I might add, the opponents of these actions are going to continue to challenge them, and they're going to come up through the lower courts. And the executive branch, would now the executive branch could help themselves by involving Congress early in their decision making, but there's a danger in doing that, because then you get a protracted fight over work product, and that's not helpful either. But I think that you're going to see this as a pretty constant until the Congress steps in and provides some clarifying legislation.
Well, more layoffs of the federal government employees, and our government hasn't collapsed whatsoever. So imagine that. Thanks for watching. Thanks, panel, for all your insight. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Now, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for the latest news and commentary. Your choice for free thinking, free speech, libertynation.com.